Next on the agenda, resolution requesting approval or denial of drainage repairs on Eagle Brook subdivision and Lester Mill Road. Kim Tucker.
Morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Approximately 35 acres drain across various properties located on McAllister Drive in the Eagles Brook subdivision and Lester Mill Road. Property owners claim Henry County approved development and construction in the Eagles Brook subdivision, which altered the drainage path and increased water runoff onto their property. Historically, stormwater management does not address drainage issues between private properties without dedicated drainage easements or those situated within private gated communities. In addition, individual residential construction plans are not required to include a hydrology study or drainage plan, and therefore are not reviewed or approved by the Stormwater Management Department. Stormwater Management was requested to provide 3 drainage design options to inform the board with possible drainage solutions. The 3 design options are broken down into 2 versions. Part A for options 1 and 2 is for construction outside of the 40-foot undisturbed buffer, and Part B is within the 40-foot undisturbed buffer. Part A for option 3 represents property acquisition for 2 lots, lots 309 and 310. And Part B is for only 1 lot, lot 309. Stormwater requests guidance from the board to determine the appropriate action, if any, is to be taken and which option is to be implemented. I'd like to present to you the different design options. This is option 1A, a 610 linear foot concrete flume. It is situated outside of the 40-foot buffer. Option 1B is exactly the same with the exception that it is within the 40-foot buffer. When relocated within the 40-foot buffer, it does prolong or extenuate the flume, and it increases it to 710 linear feet. Option 2 is a 550 linear foot aluminum 72-inch pipe. That is outside of the 40-foot undisturbed buffer. Option 2B is a 720 linear foot aluminum 72-inch pipe inside of the 40-foot undisturbed buffer. Option 3A is to purchase 2 lots, regrade those lots to restore the original drainage path in the area, and to protect the undisturbed buffer. Option 3 is pretty much the same, except instead of purchasing 2 lots, we would just be purchasing lot 309. And the regrading would take place just on 309. Again, this would protect the undisturbed buffer. So stormwater looked at the estimated cost for construction, long-term maintenance, and benefits from each of these design options, and determined that design option 3B provided the most benefit at the lowest cost, and that is estimated at $85,056. So stormwater requests guidance from the board that if any action is taken, which option to proceed with.
Before we move into the public hearing, does anybody have any comments or questions?
I wanted to wait until after I heard the public's comments first.
I'm gonna make a assessment from me now. From the beginning back in February until I got this, I was relying upon that the best economical fix that would please most people would be the concrete flume outside of the 40-foot buffer. And that was gonna cost about $61,000. So that would be a permanent fix. It'd be some cement in the backyard, but the deal is you don't have to worry about somebody maintaining it to that degree. So anyway, having said that, then I get this, and then I didn't even recognize it, $222,264, $233. So now I want to revisit somewhere in the course of time this, given the high note of it, $68,000. And that was done by a professional engineer, and I was led to believe that it could be done for that behind all the lots. So, having said that, if the board wants to wait till hear the feelings from the citizens, we can do that. Okay, what I'm going to do, this is not a public hearing, but for time constraint, I'm going to allow anybody that'd like to speak 3 minutes apiece. So if you want to come up and state your name for the record and say whatever you'd like to mention at that time. So I will open the floor for anybody that would like to have a dialogue. Now, if you come up and you have a dialogue with a commissioner, I'll cut the clock off. So I'm not trying to influence you, but that's just the way it is. So having said that, if somebody would like to come up, and we'd like to hear your feelings on this.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Joseph Norman. I live at 1266 McAllister Drive in Locust Grove, and that is on any of these plats. Some of them are referred to as Lot 307. Last November, our basement was flooded. We never had a problem until the lots adjacent to me were developed, specifically Lot 308, and this house was built. The person that built it knew that there was a water problem there. They brought in a lot of dirt, built the lot up. I've got tons of pictures showing that the lot is 3-4 feet higher than the backyard of my house. And when you move water across that, and water moved across my backyard, and you build up one side of it that high, you don't have to be an engineer to come up with what happens there, and it happened. It flooded my basement. And the gentleman that owned that property and was building mitigated it, hired a company to come in and dry out my basement, and did some things that he said would alleviate it. We haven't had our basement flood again, but we've had water come very, very close to our basement. And this is not during the historically excessive rains we had in November, December, January. This has been at the last time we had any rain of any consequence. We had a virtual pond in my backyard. This is our dream home, my wife and mine's dream home. And I've worked very hard for it, and she's worked very hard for it. This is a correction notice that was issued to the builder of that property to fix the problem. Contingent upon fixing that problem was a certificate of occupancy. He wasn't going to get it until this was fixed. This remains outstanding, and there's a family living in that home now. I'm kind of wondering how that happened. This gentleman is allowed to continue to build homes in our community, and he has this outstanding correction notice issued by Mr. Robert Dix, and I assume he's one of the building inspectors or works in that department for the county. I'm in the airplane business. I fix airplanes. If I don't do what I said I was going to do, people get delayed, and they have to go back home and try the next day. Sometimes people get killed when I don't do what I have to do. I got to stay on top of what I do. And perhaps I'm a little too stringent, and I expect too much out of other people, but I do expect other people to do their jobs and do them right and keep their word. And the gentleman that built this property stood on my back porch with me in the pouring rain and looked me in the eye and shook my hand and said he'd take care of getting this fixed. And here we are today. My word and my integrity are everything to me. And
Can
I would...
see that document, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. As I understand, this is a lot next to you. You're
Yes, sir.
You're 307.
Yes, sir.
This would be, what would be the lot next to you?
308.
308. Okay, so 308 is the one that got this correction notice.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so 308 got it. And now since then, because of all this talk and discussion, a CO was issued
Yes, sir.
on the house. So now you have a neighbor,
Yes, sir.
and
Good neighbors.
yes, I
Good
understand. I'll go as far as say they're excellent neighbors.
Pardon?
I said I would go as far as say you have excellent neighbors.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, what's your feelings? Would you go with a flume? I'm just asking.
My personal opinion is that either number 3 or 3B seems to make the most sense to me. It's the least intrusive, the least expensive. We're not going to have to get a lot of equipment back there and figure out how to get it in there and get it out. It just appears to me that 3A or 3B makes the most sense.
You're talking about the county buying 2 lots.
Yes, sir. And I don't know the ramifications of
Yeah,
that.
I can tell you I won't be in favor of us buying more dirt. That's just me now. If it's some way we can eliminate this problem, and like I said to start with, I'm all for putting a cement flume. I have had a lot of experience with them. They're permanent, they're good, it's easy maintenance, and I don't know how it would affect the backyard.
And I
but
have
it
the
will.
same concern that you voiced just a few minutes ago, that the cost on that is a big difference. And it's been explained to me a little bit about how that happened, but it still seems to be pretty excessive. Here's what I do know. Here's the facts. My basement was flooded. I can't use my backyard right now. I got a violation notice from the homeowners association because I had my grill in my front yard outside of my garage because I can't do it in my backyard anymore. And I was cited for having my grill out there. I suppose they wanted me to roll it back into my garage while it was still hot and burn my house down. But I didn't. I think I'm entitled to be able to use my backyard. And when I see things like this gentleman that built that house having something like that still outstanding, I'm not sure what to think of that. How did that happen?
I can't answer that, but you want this back? Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comment for this? Okay. Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Somebody else like to be heard at this time? State your name, please.
I'm Tina Grove, and I wasn't going to speak, but I do have a few pictures that I think are important that maybe I can just show quickly of when this project was started. I think this is my
Right.
this is my backyard here,
You're 307.
307, and this is where
The track code is on 308.
the backhoe is on 308.
Okay.
That's correct. That was, so you can see that I actually had a yard before this was started, and
Did that come with music?
this picture
Whoa.
shows my backyard now. Actually, a few months ago, they put this pipe in. There's a swell around there, but this is all water. and we cannot use our backyard. We entertain a lot, and until this was built up 4 feet here, the water, when it rained, would flow across and didn't back up into our house, but now it does back up into our house. It's been rectified to some degree, but not entirely. And I just hope they take that into consideration in the
If we put a
decision.
proposed cement flume, how much backyard could you reasonably use?
I
'Cause it
don't
would be
know.
on this side of the
It's not
40-foot
on,
easement.
it's not on the paperwork for anything to be done in our backyard.
Yes.
So we should be able to get our backyard back. I mean, we probably only have 25 feet of backyard anyways, and I would like to use it. If it rained, yes, water came through there, but it never backed up. So, you know, and in a couple of days it was dry again. So,
Thank you.
My name is Deborah Loving, and I live at 830 Lester Mill Road. I am completely and utterly opposed to any proposed solution that would encroach, infringe, or impact the 40-foot undisturbed buffer. I purchased my property for privacy and space and made the conscious decision not to live within a subdivision. There are 4 lots in the Eaglesbrook subdivision that comprise this water drainage issue. These 4 lots run the entire length of one side of my property. As it stands today, 3 of those lot owners have already removed trees and green space within that undisturbed buffer, which is yet to be addressed despite correction notices being issued by the county. I wholeheartedly agree that there have been many mistakes and oversights in the review and approval of the Eaglesbrook subdivision that warrant intervention by the county. I respectfully disagree that the system has to allow deviations if those deviations are only meant to benefit the developers. I have recently heard the argument from a representative for the developers that destroying the 40-foot undisturbed buffer would benefit them. It was relayed to me that options 1A and 2A would place the concrete flume or drainage pipe too close to the back of their residence. These lot owners were aware of the existence of the designated 40-foot undisturbed buffer, as well as the lot size and dimensions when they purchased their property. To now argue that further raping the land and destroying the only privacy I have from their subdivision is justifiable to give them additional backyard space is appalling. What is the price that is being placed on the loss to my property value, my yard, my view, and my quality of living, just so a lot owner can have a larger backyard? Especially since the sketches for options 1B and 2B strategically place the concrete flume or drainage pipe right alongside the property line, my property line, instead of closest to the lot owner's usable property. That shows intent to destroy the entire undisturbed buffer and to make it aesthetic for Eaglesbrook but create an eyesore for me. Again, that's absolutely unacceptable. As the homeowner of 830 Lester Mill Road, I never had flooding on my property until the construction of lots 308 and 309. Removing the trees, regrading the natural flow of water, and raising the elevation of home sites because the lots were retaining water resulted in unnecessary flooding, which continues today. I wish to express my belief that option 3A, which is purchasing both lots 309 and 310, would be the best solution for this problem. Based on the information I have been provided, it is believed that numerous lots should have never been approved for development. The lots in their previously undisturbed condition were functioning as designed based on the grade of the land. The water flowed onto the lots, and the trees and vegetation assisted in dispersing the runoff. If option 3B is selected and the natural green space on lot 310 is destroyed to further development, it will only serve to perpetuate the problem again, because the lot owner of 310 will be responsible for routing the 35 acres of water runoff, and it will eventually result in flooding my property and 810 Lester Mill Road again. Lot 310 is already functioning as intended and would not require any significant site work. Based on the topography and existing green space, it would seem that the cost for option 3A would be much lower than estimated. In addition, the developer of lot 308 was ordered by the county to remove the pipe at the back of his property. Once he complies with the order, that too would lower the estimated cost and expense incurred by the county. I respectfully request that option 3A be approved, since it is the most effective remedy to this problem.
Thank you.
Debbie, can I ask you a question before you sit down? I'm trying to, because I plan on talking about this after we get through all the comments, but I do want to understand something, because we had that big group meeting, and I'll talk about that in a little bit too, because I'm trying to facilitate a solution that hopefully gets, because I know you have water that now comes onto your property.
Yes.
And I know, I think we're going to have some other people speak that also are on Lester Mill, that water is now coming into their property. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Under no circumstance, even if it will rectify, and if there's going to, because I was looking at the engineer's report of their solution, which had the flume, had, let me find I believe it was 28 Leland cypresses at a price of $350 a piece. Now, I was at Home Depot this weekend, and they had like 5 to 6 foot Leland cypresses for $50, so I got to believe a $350 Leland cypress is probably pretty substantial. The proposals I've seen were that if they did do anything, and we can talk about whether it's going to be closest to the Eaglesbrook side or whether it would be closer to your side or the Lester Mill side, but under no circumstance do you want a wall of Leland cypresses that are pretty mature if we use the buffer. You're saying no way?
It depends on how the buffer is being used. I've not seen the proposals you have.
Right.
It was my understanding that the proposal that was initially submitted by Mr. Elliott never encroached in the 40-foot buffer.
And
Then I was later told he changed his opinion because he saw how close that the concrete flume, which apparently is a ridiculous width, is going to encroach on a back patio of a residence. And that's why I argue that in and of itself is not a reason to destroy a 40-foot undisturbed buffer. You know the size of your lot. That's when I was assured that there would be 6 feet tall Leland cypresses. I was also told they would be a minimum of 3 feet apart, staggered. Well, when I saw the plan that the county sent over, there was nothing in there to replace any of the green space. There was nothing to account for Leland cypresses or anything. I was also assured that they would only go 10 feet into the buffer. Well, as it stands now, the developer of lot 309 is already 10 feet in the buffer, 308 is already in the buffer, and 311 is about 39 feet into the 40-foot buffer. So either way, they wouldn't have to remove any trees to put that in if they were going to stay 10 feet. But without that assurance, and the assurances I've gotten, in backroom deals is not, no, I'm not comfortable with that.
so under no circumstance touch the buffer.
It would depend on what the circumstances is. I mean, at this point, from what I've heard, there is no plan to replace it with Leland cypresses. But the plan that the county came up with, that they showed a little while ago, Ms. Tucker showed, puts the flume or the concrete pipe right against my property line, which leaves, 30 feet of undisturbed buffer on the Eaglesbrook side for them to plant trees and make it nice for them. But I look at a concrete flume.
Right.
So absolutely not, no.
So and I'm not trying to compromise, I'm just trying to make sure I understand, because the county's in a pickle of a situation, because we have
Yes.
parties from Bill Gardner Parkway, we got parties from
Yes.
Lester Mill, we got parties from Eaglesbrook, we have a
I
homeowners
appreciate that,
association.
yes.
So I'm trying to figure out where everybody is, so we can hopefully have positive ground to move forward.
I would
If-
like to see them have a resolution that does not include encroaching on a 40-foot undisturbed buffer. I mean, that buffer is in place because the homeowners on Lester Mill didn't want Eaglesbrook subdivision.
If there's Leland cypresses, then whatever the solution is within the buffer, and then the lots, meaning that you would have your property or Lester Mill property, Leland cypresses, solution, then Eaglesbrook. Would that make you feel better about your
That would make me feel
concerns?
somewhat better, but I don't advocate encroaching on the entire 40-foot buffer. It's my understanding there is no reason they'd have to take the whole 40 feet.
Well, I think the only concerns that when I was looking at the plans, Mr. Norman and Tina were up just a few seconds ago. That flume, because it's pretty big according
Yes,
to.
very voluminous.
I think it would be right outside their back steps. I mean,
It doesn't,
basically where it
apparently the
was.
plan doesn't go on Mr. Norman's property, correct? All the solution seems to start on lot 309.
How could it not go on his property if it's not in the buffer? That doesn't, am I misreading that, Chairman?
Their plan started on lot 309.
I mean, I need to see the plan again up there.
Which one are we talking about? 1A?
I'm not sure which one.
Because one of those houses is sitting,
Option 1A doesn't come on their lot at all.
and
And that's the concrete
No, it isn't.
flume that stays outside of the 40-foot buffer.
okay.
Again, same with option 2A, which is the pipe, stays
So
outside of the
How
40-foot
far
buffer.
off of that lot, this house right here, which house is that? So that's lot 3.
That lot's pretty much in the 40-foot buffer.
Which lot is that?
Here existing between the design that Mr. Elliott came
The
up
flume
with
actually would not
originally.
be on 309. There would be
What's
none.
1270
That would be the
McAllister?
head
Which lot is
wall.
that?
So
Which lot is that?
they might have to do some landscaping in lot 309, but the head wall would be outside of the 40-foot buffer.
So there were two original designs for the flume. The first one submitted by Mr. Elliott did have the concrete flume on lot 307.
307?
307, Mr. Norman's property.
So this one right here doesn't start on, it starts
That's correct.
at 307 and
That's
doesn't go
correct.
through 307.
That's correct.
So
So I
really,
think there may
it-
be some confusion there as far as
So we're talking
which
about 1,
design
2,
we're
3,
looking
we're
at.
talking about 5 lots. And 1, 2, 3, 4 is already existing. So 3, 9, and 10 is vacant at the moment. But let me tell you where this gets all messed up. If you read the plat, and if you read the history, not the history, but the labels on it, and it becomes significant, it indicates that all side lots carries a 20-foot drainage easement, which is 10 foot off a center line of the side lots in the subdivision. Okay, it also calls for the same 20-foot drainage easement in all backyards, be 10 foot off of the center line. But in this case here, now, Lester Mill Road people are given nothing, obviously. So now, does that mean that the total 20 foot comes this way? Or is it 10 foot coming this way? But in any event, how would somebody do an oversight and put 10 or 20 feet of drainage easements within a undisturbed buffer? This is the part that, if it wasn't a buffer there, then it wouldn't be a deal. But we got a 40-foot undisturbed, and that means you can't really touch it. So the deal is, we got to work around, unless there can be some compromise. We got to work around a 40-foot buffer and leave it intact.
We want your privacy to stay intact. We're just trying to, and that's why I mentioned the Leland cypresses and other things, because we're trying to create something that,
What could we do with 30 feet? Would that, I know you don't like that, but it would be, give us,
Well, that would require them not to do any grading at this point, because the builders, aside from lot 310,
yeah, but they got to put a
because that
flume-
one's
they gotta
wooded,
put a
but they've
flume
already
or a pipe.
encroached. I'm sorry?
Somebody's got to put a flume or a pipe across all these 5 lots.
But what I'm saying is they've already encroached in the buffer on those other lots.
By how much?
I know lot 309 is about 10 feet.
10 feet?
I know lot 311's pushing about 38, 39 feet. She cleared right up to my property line. The
Wow.
county has a citation against her to
Well,
replace
I-
trees. But
I
again,
don't
we're
know
all
who
on
approved
hold because
that.
of this.
I don't know who approved it, but that could be corrected if they absolutely got in, no matter who it was, cut down a undisturbed buffer.
I'm trying to preserve my privacy. I chose not to live in a subdivision, and this is being forced on me. And I didn't have a water problem until they started clearing these lots. And we had photos from years ago when those lots held the water. So them trying to regrade the lots and build them up to keep the water off them is absolutely flooding us and making this our problem. But now I'm gonna have to sacrifice my privacy and my space from a subdivision and have them in my backyard and have a view of a concrete flume because they need to develop lots that should have never been approved for development.
Well, looking at the plans, I formed an opinion, because I want to know why somebody would raise it up 4 feet. Okay, you're looking at the plans, and it appears the intent of the engineer was to take the water from the back and go to the front. And this is why they put these catch basins on the street and then went down to a detention pond.
It wouldn't work, and
Yeah.
that was the way they explained
Well,
it to
I'm just
me.
saying, that's what it appeared to me.
The retention
That the
pond is my
intent was,
understanding.
whether it ended up that way or not,
Yeah, they can't get the water to the street. That is the entire problem. The way the lots sit, they cannot get the water to the street.
Naturally
And when
so
I
they couldn't get it
encourage
to the
them to
street.
get
Is that
it,
what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
I'm saying the natural lay of the land, there's no way the water could automatically go to the street. Is that what
It
you're
was
saying?
flooding onto the lots and settling. I don't know that it ever really made it to the street, but it's my understanding even if it could, the retention pond is probably incorrectly placed where it is in the subdivision, and it cannot support the water. So even if the builders could get that water to the street, it's my understanding what's been told to me is the retention pond could not support that. Again, incorrectly placed. I think there were a lot of, and we've discussed this before, that's why I made that statement. There's been a lot of errors in the approval of the Eaglesbrook subdivision.
Well, I'm not an engineer, and I can't get, even though I've got a lot of experience at this, I can't get down there with professional engineers. And
Let's finish hearing all the other comments and then see where we go. Because I've talked to Commissioner Prince too, who is an engineer, and I want to get his thoughts at some
Okay.
point too.
anybody else like to be heard?
Thank you, Dan.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Jenny Little. My husband and I have 810 Lester Mill Road. We purchased the property back, I believe, 97. We've been living there since 99. We built our home. When we first moved there, we had no problems. We had no problems with any water drainage. As a matter of fact, there is a 9-foot wide by 6-foot deep creek bed that separates our home and 800 Lester Mill Road, which this creek bed went through part of the Eaglesbrook subdivision. And when that property was approved, evidently it was approved to reroute that water and fill in that dry creek bed. So now when you follow the creek bed up beside our property, it goes to the detention pond, which that detention pond did not create that creek bed. They developed McAllister somewhere between 03 to 05. We started having issues when we started having torrential rains in 05, which there are pictures on file with all this whole hoopla since we've been dealing with it since February. Because February was not the first time we had flooding. 05, we had to spend approximately $5,000 to have our property repaired. In the back, we had to create a creek bed for all the runoff from Eaglesbrook that came through the woods into the back of our property that was flooding my husband's workshop on our property. We are in agreement that we don't want the buffer messed with. Our property was not in the flood zone when we built our property because obviously we would not have received financing or any kind of okay for building at the time. We are now in the flood zone apparently because of all the water being rerouted. I just hope something's learned from this. I have learned since that there are several other people within our county that are having problems with runoff from subdivisions due to poor planning. And I understand that we need to draw people into our county for to receive tax money, but not at the cost of our property owners. This has become a ridiculous circus, in my opinion, and it's just been a bunch of finger pointing, everybody brushing it off to another section of the county to handle. If this would not have been approved in the first place, we wouldn't be here having these arguments.
I want to kind of ask you the same thing I asked Debbie, because it sounds like 10 feet of the 40 feet has already been touched, so we're going to have some type of remediation or a fix of that situation anyway. If during that process we use that 10 feet on the Eaglesbrook side for the solution and put cypresses and other things, does that, because I'm trying to find where the compromise is.
In our situation, we would be okay with it, but because we have, tree line and we have privacy. I understand her situation because she's
Right, and that's
like from here, like looking at that wall. I mean,
Sure.
she's right there at it. I have a shop in my backyard between us and Eaglesbrook. Beyond that is where we had to tear out some of our trees to fix this, which has since then created unusable space within our property
right.
that we can't do anything with.
Put your finger on the lot here that somebody went in and cut all of the 40-foot buffer. You got 307, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay, I believe This is where we are. This is our property. I believe it's on this property.
So
that-
somebody went in there and that's an
or
existing
right,
house.
right in here. I'm sorry. I apologize. This is where the pond is. Where,
Yes.
this is the
So
property.
you're saying that
311.
existing homeowner went and,
They have gone into the buffer, cleaning out and whatnot. But we're here, you know, like I said, we've already dealt with water coming onto the back part of our property, and we've fixed that at our expense. That's why we have not been willing to spend any money to help resolve this problem, because we've already done our part. We had to do what we had to do to protect our property at the time. So,
so you're saying if we could use 10 feet of that 40 foot, or allow somebody to use it, and put legal and cypress across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots, 6 lots, then,
I'm speaking for the property
yeah,
that
well, I'm just
connects
saying,
to
I'm just
mine.
saying, we gotta start with you and then get with the other 4.
Mm-hmm.
I understand, does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it does.
So,
But
since
it's
you
gotta be
already got
substantial,
into-
because when we've had other things with the county where we had to give up trees, the county came in and put in those $50, trees, and which we just now, about 10 years later, are having some privacy. So I don't want it to take 10 years for us to get our privacy back. We knew the subdivision was coming in when we bought our property. That's why we put our house where we did. But still, my thing is, if you're gonna make a plan for something, and that's what's approved and that's the way it has to be in order for a developer to go in, don't do something that you can just go back and retract. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come up and share your feelings with us, please?
Hi there. My name is Dana English, and I'm a resident of Eaglesbrook and also a realtor there. Kind of one thing that I just would like clarification on is on Lot 308. When they built that home, they brought in, I guess, they built up maybe 4 feet of dirt to put that house on. It's a slab home, 2-story or story and a half, and I guess from what I understand, they built it up so as though the appearance as you go down McAllister, it would look more uniform to the existing homes there. Well, in discussion with all these lots where they're saying that there already was water flow, the water was flowing properly off of it, and I didn't know until today that it was flowing before onto the properties at Lester Mill. But when the builder of 308 built up that lot, and I think put in some sort of drainage pipe, and I don't know if that was approved, at that point, the very next rain is when all the water started backing up. And I happen to know the Normans. I know their property. I witnessed it during this time, and it was devastating. And being a realtor and helping people protect their investments and thinking about resale value, my thought was, what do you do? What happens at this point? How is it fixed? I'm glad to hear that you guys, everyone seems to have a plan. But I think if these homeowners could rest assured that their privacy will be given back, it will be improved so that this doesn't happen in the future. And then the yards will be repaired to where people can enjoy it. I mean, we're in the spring and summertime where people are going to be enjoying their yards more. And I think that's a big thing that I would love to see a commitment on, or at least know where we go from here and what kind of time frame. But my question really is it okay to build up a property, to bring in that much, fill dirt to build a property up, resulting in the drainage, the water stopping? I mean, that really, if you saw it in person, water was no longer allowed to go anywhere but onto the lots on Lester Mill. So if it already was an issue, it became even a greater issue, because now even more water that used to flow onto those vacant lots and fall off into the retention area is now going onto the lots of Lester Mill, or backing up into lot 308, which like I said, or 307, which I've, witnessed myself and continue to every time it rains. So, any comment on building up, or if that is okay, if that's something that's...
I wouldn't have a comment on building up. I know people build up, and I know people take dirt out, but violating a code or I don't know what requirement that would
Well,
have.
and
but-
from now what I understand, I don't even know that it's relevant, but I understand these new homeowners, just a few months into their home, are having buckling. Wood floors are lifting up, you know, and they're wondering if it was an installer issue, if it was a glue issue. But if moisture's underneath that home, you know, where dirt was built up and water's continuing to back up against it, is that something, you know, I mean, I'm just thinking. But I just think a whole lot of issues have been created from that property being developed.
I couldn't answer that.
Okay. All right, well,
I
thank
would-
you
I
for
would
your
have to yield the
time.
floor to the distinguished gentleman from District 4, since he has an engineering background, and he
Okay.
could probably elaborate on that.
Do you even want to touch that one?
Atypically, you adjust the house up to meet the other houses. You don't want a house that's down in the hole. What you would typically do when you raise up something like that is tail ditch around. And we're going to get to the root of this issue here in a minute, so that's why I'm being a little quiet right now, because I'm
Yes.
trying to hear everybody out before I make a
Absolutely.
statement. But I'll further exactly what I'm talking about and why and how we're going to situate this and the reason they do raise it up, and then how the proper way to get water off of the site and move it downstream. So we'll get to that. I'm
Okay.
coming back to you. I'm just trying to
And-
listen to everybody real quick.
Perfect. And just since I haven't seen it in the plans, one thing that I want to ask in my heart of hearts is for you to consider getting these folks' yard, the Norman's yard, back to what it was. I understand getting the water directed off properly, but I have seen what they have gone through. I've seen the heartache. And I know how important it is for them to be able to enjoy their yard. And that's what I would love to see, is something in the plan also for that to be handled. I know the builder had agreed to do it, and I don't know if he's washed his hands clean of it since he sold that home, but I would love to see that remedied for these folks. Thank y'all for your time.
Another thing that confuses me was back in the day, in my younger days, when I was dealing with final plats. The final plat is, everything is completed, and you have to sign off, approve it, the final plat. And what that does, when you sign it, they take it over to the courthouse and they record it. And I know the experience I've had with final plats, when you're dealing with drainage easements, it would be shown and addressed on the plat, the final plat, as to how you're going to address the water. So consequently, to do the hydraulical study on it, and if you have to have all that data to design a detention pond based on certain criteria. So I'm saying I'm not saying who failed in this thing, but number one is I'm convinced it's draining 35 acres of land, which it always had, but somebody should have, this is hindsight, somebody should address how we're going to do this behind all these lots before the final plat was signed off. And I may be a little premature on saying that, but if had that, we're going to find a lot of other things. If you remember, 203, 204, 205, I'm just saying this, and I was executive assistant here. They was approving houses so fast, so quick, no money down, no interest and all that, I'm not so sure they didn't approve some houses to be built on lily pads.
Absolutely. And I
So,
remember
but
that.
anyway, no good deed goes unpunished, and now we're having to get together and find a acceptable solution here with 6 different entities. One is the 5 here and one is us, and we're gonna try diligently, obviously, we gotta take care of the problem. Somebody's got to take care of it. And I think we may have a dog in that hunt, because somebody should address the 35 acres, and this is why I formed an opinion that, looking at the map and the topo, it appears that the engineer had all them lots designed to go flow the water to the road and then catch it and then go to that detention pond. But somebody just said that's not exactly how it was. So
Yeah, and it definitely.
that's just my comments.
With developing the most recent home at 308, it definitely took it to the back. And of course, unfortunately, that's where it's staying because it hasn't been redesigned to go any further. All right, well, thank you again for your
Yes,
time.
ma'am. Anybody else like to be heard this time? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, I'm Jim Jones. I'm the proud property owner of Lot 310, which is I'm a builder, J.R. Jones Construction. Lot 310 in Eaglesbrook has not been cleared. I've been holding off doing anything with that lot until this has been resolved one way or the other. I bought the lot back in 2007 along with a batch of other lots. And it was the downturn that prevented me from building on it. It was nothing wrong with the lot other than it's not a slab lot. It's really a crawl space lot. And came back to it recently to take a look at it, discovered that the lot 309 had been built up 4 or 5 feet higher than my elevation at 310. And noticed the pipe along the back line was encroaching in on the 40-foot buffer, followed that all the way up and saw it had outlet or intake was on these Mr. Norman's property. And it just didn't look right. I thought surely that wasn't going to stay. And it sounds like the county was sort of on it, so I stayed away from it, started building across the street. Turns out the lot 308 did close, and I'm kind of surprised that happened. This has all come about primarily because we're in a time where it seems like slab lots are cheaper to build, or slab houses are cheaper to build than what, in my opinion, should have been put on those lots to begin with. They built these things up to save money to make them affordable. And it's a crawl space lot. Lots dictate, to some extent, what they need to have on them as a foundation. So now I've got a problem. I've got to deal with 310. My suggestion is, at this point, take all the dirt out of 309. That's been filled up in there. Purchase 309 and 310. The county can just turn them into a watershed, and then I'm giving up the potential profit from 310 by saying that. But then you still have to address the ones that are now occupied, calls them back up into Mr. Norman's property. That's just pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else like to be heard at this time? I yield the floor to any commissioner that'd like to be heard at this time. District 2.
First thing, before I speak, I want to put a picture up real quick. This is on, get back to my. This picture was provided to me of, this is the Norman's property, which is lot number 307. You can look at it, and this is before any construction occurred in Eaglesbrook on lots 308, 39, or 310. And I don't, obviously when we had a heavy rainstorm, this has been a continuing, ongoing problem. And I just want to make sure that we, because I have these things brought to my attention, and this is not a new problem. I think this is just a new problem because we have lots there that now, it's flowing through down to the Lester Mill owners. The thing I want to kind of clarify is, because I've had other commissioners ask me, how did we get here? How is this thing even on the agenda? And here's, we started having these water issues, and then the chairman and through the county manager organized a big sit down with all parties involved. And it was actually a great meeting. I think everybody that was there, I can still remember the quote where the chairman said, look, we have all the parties in the room, let's figure this thing out. And we all left the room kind of feeling like we were making in positive direction, because Jenny Little had mentioned the dry creek bed, and I think the builders had talked about trying to route the water back to the dry creek bed, but then also putting a berm, I think, on some of the property back there. That's what we left that meeting thinking. But I completely respect, Debbie and Jenny's concern for privacy and making sure that everything's right. And that's where I think when the builders and developers started working towards a solution, that buffer came into play. and we hit a roadblock. I mean, because the buffer, you can't touch the undisturbed buffer. The buffer was touched, so then citations were issued, and then the county staff also required that the builders go and get an engineered report, and that's when we got the professional report that brought up the concrete flume. So I think that we all wanted to work towards a solution from that meeting, but it's just logistically, it got to be hard to do it because you had this 40-foot buffer, and as the chairman mentioned, the drainage easement was kind of, if you looked at it by the law, is kind of falls into, it would have to kind of play into that same area. So you had these things opposing each other. So that's how we got here. I don't want, and this is a complicated situation where we have, look at all those fingerprints, but we have a complicated situation where I have residents on I have residents from Bill Gardner Parkway, I have people on Lester Mill, and then we have Eagles Brook. And by the way, all the water is coming from 35 acres that are north of both Lester Mill and Eagles Brook. I mean, our own engineer in the big group meeting said 97% of this water is not even from Eagles Brook. This is all coming from above and beyond. So we got a mess is what we've got. And that's why, fortunately, we have stormwater to kind of help out on these things. I do want to address one thing because it bothers me to hear it, and I want to make sure, going back to our country's founding, that we don't have taxation without representation, is that I've heard, and we need to quit saying it because it's something, and I can get the county attorney to clarify, everybody in the community pays stormwater fees. Am I correct on that?
Well, all residential property owners.
Everybody pays.
As a general rule, all the residential property owners pay.
So to say that we don't service gated communities, if that is our stance, I don't think that's our stance, but is that our stance, is that we're taking fees without providing any protection?
It would be inappropriate to exempt a class of property owner based on whether it's a private subdivision or not a private subdivision. I don't think we can do that under our fee structure. Now, I think historically, I think stormwater has stayed out of, well, most private disputes like this, period, but especially those out of private subdivisions. So.
But I want to clarify, because I've had this problem also with cleaning retention ponds and other things in the past. Everybody says, nope, gated community, we don't touch that. And I'm like, well, if that's the case, let's quit taking their money.
Right, their fee, I believe their fee is the same as every other lot, every other single family lot.
Okay, may I comment?
Yes.
Okay, stormwater does charge a base fee for all residential homes, for all developments that produce impervious surface. And so according to the National Pollution Detection Elimination System, by the federal government, by the state government, Henry County is mandated to have a stormwater MS4 permit. That permit covers all private properties, the stormwater that comes off of all private properties, so that each individual residential private property owner does not have to maintain their own permit. That's the service we provide. We hold that permit, we manage that permit so that individuals won't have to. That's the service everyone provides, and that's the service everyone pays for. The difference in private gated communities is that they are perceived as one private entity, as a private business entity. It's the same thing as why DOT doesn't go in and maintain their private roads. They are not public roads, they're private roads. So any stormwater system on a private property is maintained, that's not within the dedicated easement, is maintained by the private property owner. So they do receive their service because the stormwater that's produced from their impervious surface does not stay on their property. It goes through their pond, off of their pond, into the stormwater system that is permitted through Henry County.
But that pond is part of the stormwater system, and who maintains that system?
It is supposed to be maintained by the HOA.
So why don't we give them a credit for their, do you agree with that, County
They-
Attorney?
I mean, the problem with that, and I understand, it makes perfect sense, except the problem is we charge each individual homeowner is paying the same stormwater fee within a private community that they are in a non-gated community.
That's correct.
And I think if they're paying the same fee, they are entitled to all of the same services, not most of the same services. And we're providing, we do provide the same base level of service everywhere, which is the permit issue and sort of the big picture of stormwater management. But I think it's inappropriate for us to say in gated communities that we're not going to handle, or that we're not going to involve ourselves in the exact same situation that we would involve ourselves in a non-gated subdivision. I think that's what happened. Now, now road maintenance is a little different, because road maintenance, you don't pay a fee for road maintenance. That's covered by taxes, and there is no law that requires you to provide a service.
I mean, somebody has a heart attack, the ambulance doesn't stop and say, we're not going to service you because you live in a gated community. I mean, that's the thing, it's a public safety issue,
I think operationally
too.
it makes sense what she's saying, but from a purely legal standpoint, when we charge a fee for a service, we have to provide that service uniformly in accordance with the fee that we charge.
I don't want to get on the sidebar though. This is a completely different thing, because I want to make sure I leave enough time. Commissioner Prince, I personally called you and I said, look, you're an engineer. Oh,
As you know, we've had some issues with some private dams, and based on what you're saying, can we apply that same logic for dams like Swan Lake?
Well, dams are a little bit different from stormwater. I mean, they're part of stormwater, but the stormwater fees we assess aren't designed to maintain and repair dams. I mean, the maintenance and repair of dams is not programmed into the services provided based upon that fee. Because what happened when the county assessed the stormwater fee, there's a list of services that goes along with it. So that fee was designed to pay for these services. Yeah, you could change your stormwater fee to pay for dams, but that stormwater fee, instead of being, what is it, $23, suddenly it's going to be a few $100s. I mean,
Are you, sorry,
county-
Chairman, can I just ask a quick follow-up question? Are you of the same opinion that we're getting from the attorney?
Well, I am of the same opinion as far as the rate that is being charged is for existing services. So increasing the services to dam maintenance, dam repairs would have to result in an increase in the rate fee to all of Henry County residents.
or you'd have to create
Or a special tax district,
special
other,
districts and assess
other
people
funding
based on their-
mechanisms would have to be
Yeah.
created.
Which is why you have a uniform stormwater fee, because in theory, if you had enough time, enough energy, enough computing power, you could assess every single lot of individualized stormwater fee based on the amount, volume, and flow of stormwater that leaves that lot. That's impossible to do. So we've created a uniform-based stormwater fee for residential properties. But once you do that, you have to provide the services in a uniform manner as well.
Now, as
But-
far as the services provided to private gated subdivisions, they can apply for a credit, a stormwater fee credit. Any commercial or industrial business entity can apply for stormwater credit if they are maintaining their own
is
systems.
this something you instituted? Because I've brought this issue up
No, sir.
at least 2 or 3 years, and nobody has ever mentioned that
No,
the
sir. There
homeowners of
is-
Eaglesbrook could get the credit.
There is a stormwater credit fee structure already established. No one has ever applied for that fee, for that credit.
I think it's been buried.
It is in the ordinance. It's a fairly complex procedure. At that point, they have to go through the individualized
Let's get back
assessment
on
and
point.
calculate stormwater coming in, stormwater going out.
The point is, if you take a gated community, the government, in this case here, Henry County is all in it, because when they submit plans for subdivision, number one, the governing body has to approve this, in most cases, zoning. The second thing is when they get ready to build it, they have to submit all these plans. The county has to inspect all these plans. And then the only difference is, there's no difference between a private subdivision and a public subdivision, so to speak, except when they get through with it, it all meets county standards or the standards that the county has adopted. And then, even though it's gated, you want to go in and build a house, who do you have to contact? The county.
The only real difference between a gated community and a non-gated community, from a legal standpoint, is that the roads within a gated community aren't really roads, it's a shared driveway. I mean, it's Eagles Brook Drive, which runs the length of Eagles Brook. It's not a public road, it's basically a shared
understand that.
driveway of all the people that live on there, and the restrictive covenants set that out. They say everybody has an easement to drive over the roads as long as you follow the rules of the subdivision. That's the only real legal difference between a gated community and a non-gated community.
That's the point I'm making. That
Yeah, it's the status of the road.
gate doesn't distinguish, because even after it's gated, The only difference is an inspector will have to call somebody to get a number to open the gate to go in and inspect the house being built, just like this
It's a
here.
driveway. It's a driveway shared by, ever how many hundreds of homes are.
And so just like a driveway shared on a private property, the driveway shared in a private gated community, we would not go onto a private property and replace or repair their culverts unless they're in a dedicated drainage easement. So similar to that, we would not go into a private gated subdivision and maintain their pipes, their ponds, and such.
Well, I think we've got different opinions on, I look at a gated subdivision other than the streets, that somebody would have to pay within the homeowner association. Everything else is, I'd treat them just like I would anybody without a gate.
I don't get Blake's thoughts, Commissioner Francis' thoughts on everything.
Joy. All right, just catch everybody up with you guys. Typically, we, as commissioners, let the existing commissioner in their district make the decisions and do what they need to for you. And typically, I wouldn't have Commissioner Preston come over to Kellytown and tell us what to do there. But when we got the prices back on how much it was going to cost, it raised some red flags with all the commissioners. And at that time, I had to get involved because I'm an engineer. This is what I do all day, every day. We've got three parties here that we're trying to represent. We're trying to represent the homeowners, you guys. We're trying to represent the adjacent property owners. And we're trying to represent the rest of the citizens of Henry County. And I want you guys to back up and take a look for a second. We're looking at $222,000 on one of these options and $200,000. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to spend on a private issue. Now, I'm going to circle back around and we're going to have a little sidebar for a second. I'm going to recommend from this point forward that we look at the ULDC and we do master grading plans, which is what we need to do on subdivisions, and this would stop this mess from going on because you are not alone. I have had this same meeting with angry property owners at least 3 times over the last 6 months from all the rain we've had, where there's drainage issues on private property that's coming onto somebody else's property, angry, and the whole reason is because we as a county didn't require the developer to show where the water's going to go. All of it. Not a portion of it, but all of it. So I would like us to take a very serious look at doing master grading plans on an entire subdivision, because here we are wasting these people's time, and they're feuding and fussing, and they've got major issues out there when it could have been solved on the front end. And so let's work toward that. I know Wade's familiar with all that, so I think that's something we really need to look at, and I'll get with you, George, and maybe we'll get staff to start looking that way. But when we go back to the issue at hand, here's where I'm at. I've looked over this thing, and again, we've got the 3 different parties that we're trying to represent here. Somebody's going to lose. There's no possible way. I've looked at this. I've tried to skin this cat about 10 different ways. Somebody's going to lose. All right. Typically, on something like this, we don't do work outside of the drainage easements. If we do work outside of the drainage easement, we've got to purchase an easement, we have to have construction easements, we have to maintain an easement. The cost is just astronomical. I've looked at several of the options, and the recommendation that I'm going to make is not going to make everybody happy, but at some point somebody's just got to make a decision, and that's what's going to happen. All right, Kim, put up option 1B. We're going to have discussion about it. It's just all right, let's talk for a minute. First off, we're going to take away that concrete flume. It's not going to be a concrete flume. What I'm looking at is a tail ditch, vegetated tail ditch, coming down that 20-foot easement, and we're going to try to put it as much as we can over on the subdivision side. when I say vegetated, that means it's not going to be a concrete ditch. We're going to need to go back in and plant as much as we can to give her privacy that we can do. On the side lots, on the side lot lines, we have drainage easements on every side lot line, 10 feet center on each side. We need to go in, tail ditch as much as we can on those side lot lines, pulling that water back down to that tail ditch that's in the drainage easement. And I understand, you know, some people are not going to be happy, but when we start crossing many, many pieces of property, the logistics of getting everybody on board, everybody signing something, in fact, we may have to condemn property. The reason we put those drainage easements there are to do this exact thing. And I hate that we're going to have to get in that buffer. We will plant it back, the trees will grow back, but I have to look out for the county as a whole. And that's going to be my proposal. That's going to be the most economic. That's going to be the least invasive on everybody. We will need to put a cap on this as far as money. We just can't. I can't spend that kind of money to fix this. It's unfortunate, but that's just what we're going to do. I guess, Kim, you can prepare the plans.
Well, I do have a question. As far as a storm event, the level of the storm event that this ditch is going to be designed to service. The 100-year storm event.
Yep. It's going to be a fairly wide ditch.
It's going to be very wide.
But again,
You're talking about being wide if it's dirt.
if it's dirt, it's dirt.
It's dirt. Okay, it'd be smaller if it's cement.
And realizing that there are areas that will experience erosion. If it's on dirt.
Right. And we'll
Okay, all right.
check dams if we need them.
Okay.
How wide would it be if it's dirt?
Well, the flow would be about the same width as this one. Then we've got 4 feet, and you'd have to do the hydrology to get the side slopes. But we can't spend $200,000 to fix a private issue and come off of that drainage easement. It's unfortunate, but that's what those drainage easements are for. And I hate it's in that buffer. I don't know who in the world put a buffer on top of that easement or why they didn't move the easement up, which would have been simple to do on final plat phase, but they did not. So yes, I realize we're going to have some erosion, but we're going to have to do check dams or things of that nature. I do tail ditches all the time. It's a lot of water. But
this is basically, Mr. President, what you're talking about is a 20-foot wide strip through there. Now, how wide would the concrete structure be?
well, the concrete is 4 feet on the bottom. It's a 2-to-1 slope on the sides, 2 feet high. So hypotenuse of
12
that,
feet. 12 foot wide,
How much?
12 foot total.
12 foot wide.
12 feet?
Yes,
That-
sir.
That's concrete.
12 feet from cement to cement,
Yes, sir.
like so.
That's correct.
4 foot deep,
2 foot deep.
2 foot deep.
But I'm saying
Oh.
a vegetated ditch, which is dirt, grass. And I'll point this out before everybody gets, what are you talking about? Beside our roads, we have ditches. They're just grass ditches. We use them all the time, and a lot of water flows down the grass. Yes. I mean, that's all I'm saying. Let's just put a grass ditch here instead of the concrete flume. You can plant beside it. You can grow things. You can't plant right beside a concrete ditch. It'll kill it. You want the roots. So we can plant that, keep the slope about the same, minimal as we can, obviously. But that's going to be the answer, and that's what I'm recommending. It's Commissioner Preston's district, but that's economic, less invasive. We'll plant the trees back best we can, and that's a slippery slope.
As far as maintenance, the concrete versus the proposal that you're talking about, what's going to be the
On
difference?
a grass ditch, if it flows, it'll scavenge itself. And just like you think of a roadway ditch, beside a road, sometimes you will have to go out and clean it out. So,
But the shrubs and stuff slow water flow too.
that's correct, and that's what you want. You're trying to slow the velocity down so it doesn't go off. But several complaints from the adjacent owner on 810 and 830 about water coming on them. This will actually stop that. This will keep the water from coming on them. It is going to invade their privacy a little bit. We'll have to do some trees or something to fix that. But it fixes the issue of water on the north property owners. It fixes the issue on the water of the south property owners. It fixes my issue of spending $200,000 because you can do this for $40,000.
Inside the subdivision.
It'll be inside the subdivision on the drainage easement.
On the subdivision side of the drainage easement, though.
Right. Well, there is no drainage easement on the adjacent property. There's only 20 feet on there. And that's,
Yeah, I was just wondering, Kim, is this water not going to make it to the retention pond?
This water will not make it to, the retention
it can't
pond
come back.
originally was not designed to carry the 35 acres. So this was never intended to make it to the detention pond.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
that's what's called bypass. To let you know, when we do hydrology study, you do bypass from off-site water. But what no one did was actually route the bypass water. They just built houses, and what it's done is it backed up, it's flooded this gentleman, and it's going on the other adjacent properties. So,
Here's what I'd like to suggest, because I know we have another, the engineer that designed it on the builder side of things. I'd like to go ahead, because I think that has a lot of promise to it, and I want to make sure the Lester Mill people know we plan on planning, or part of it would be to plant a privacy screen across the process. I'd like to, because I think there's more details that need to be worked out, but we need to go ahead and move forward. I'd like to propose and make a motion that we approve up to $70,000. Doesn't mean we have to spend it, but up to $70,000 for the county. And then I'd ask Commissioner Prince if you wouldn't mind just having a courtesy sit down with the engineer as well as with Kim, the director of stormwater, and we, get it all marked out based upon this direction, and that would be the resolution of the board.
Is that predicated on the Lester Mill property line or on the?
I'd prefer for it to be on the Eaglesbrook side of it to give as much, the maximum privacy for the Lester Mill homeowners.
yes,
That would be my direction to staff, is let's, and I even don't mind the cypresses being planted
But what
on the
we're really
side
doing is looking at
of the Lester Mill side.
We're really looking at 1A, instead of it being a flume, it's going to be earth. That's basically what we're looking at, except it would be somewhat inside the 40 foot.
1A wouldn't work. It's too close to the houses.
No, I'm saying, if you're going to get in the, if you determine you're going to get in the 40-foot protected zone, I would rather protect 30 feet on the Lester Mill side than take the 10 feet off the property.
We don't have rights to access that property. We only have rights to the easement.
I bet if.
Now, if the owners will let us come in there, I'd be fine with
Okay,
that.
can we take 10 feet off the, okay? So you're saying we've got to.
We have 20 feet off that back property line that we can access.
I'll go with the 70,000 not to exceed, but I'd want it to be, maybe we need to talk to some of the homeowners, not homeowners, but property owners. I know that meeting we had two people in that meeting that said that they would, developers, builders said they would consider making a contribution, if you remember that. So,
Can I add one other thing?
ma'am,
One other thing that I did do some research on, and that as far as if we do put in the concrete flume, it's come to my attention that the homeowners would probably be impacted with their homeowner's insurance policy if the concrete flume went behind on their back property, unless we put a fence up. So we would have to include maintenance of a fence all the way around. Yes, sir.
What if it's not concrete?
I would have to check on that.
So, I know, Mr. Elliott, you're out there in the audience. Do you have any comments on this discussion? If you want to come up to the podium too? And then we really do need to kind of move forward.
Michael, don't hold back on them now.
Don't encourage it.
Good evening, good afternoon, members of the board. Michael Elliott, President of Metro Engineering. Yes, I was hired by the two lot owners of 309, 308, now 310, Mr. Jones, Mr. Wesley, Mr. Strain. Yes, we do have a mess. And Commissioner Prince, sorry, call you Blake when I'm on the phone with you. You're exactly right. We've got to make, as my papa would say, we've got to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear right here. Brian's exactly right. 97% of this water isn't coming from the gates of Eagles Brook. It's coming up and above. How that happened, I don't know. We got to move forward. Yes, back in February when I produced a plan that said a concrete flume would work, I never knew that acquisition of the 2 lots was on the table. I'm a taxpayer too, run a business here, families pay taxes for 8 generations. Do I want to see y'all spend $250,000? No. I put together a concrete flume and a fee, and I got some local guys to price the work for me for $62,000. On April 12th, the Stormwater Department also put out something that came very close to that, 68. Now, how that ballooned to 224, I don't know, and that's not my place. I feel comfortable you could get a concrete flume. Now, I don't know all the other ramifications. I mean, county attorney will tell you you'd have to acquire a drainage easement, and yes, unfortunately, commissioners, I'll have to tell you, I'm going back and replatting lots weekly and adding drainage easement to them for this very fact. Mr. Prince is a surveyor too. He'll tell you the same thing.
What about the tillage? That's what I want to know, because I'm raising homeowners insurance and
This will
other
be on
things.
video for 5 years when I say it works, and I'll get reminded by Mr. Norman when it doesn't. But I kind of feel like Thomas Jefferson negotiating the Treaty of Paris over here. But that is something functional. One thing I did, I looked at several things beside a concrete flume. I came up with the same size pipe. Nobody's going to want a 400 Komatsu in their backyard. I looked at an earthen ditch. Ms. Tucker's exactly right. It widens it out. This is not hydrology class, but nonetheless, I've went to grammar school with Miss Little. I've gotten to meet Miss Loving, helped her find all her property pins. Everybody's got a stake in this. The Normans, everybody that spoke, even the builders that I represent, they didn't buy those lots thinking that they were going to have to convey 35 acres. I don't know of any builder that's ever had to do that in Henry County, and I've been developing lots for a long time. So, give and take. I'd be glad to work with Mr. Prince. I've given the information to Ms. Tucker. We can refine that, but these people need some relief. I mean, I think about it Saturday night. I live in Kellytown, and I'm thinking, man, I don't even want to know what it looks like over there on the backside of McAllister Drive.
That's true.
And I have no skin in the game. But I'm willing to help because, like I said, so y'all just let me know. But I think in deference to everybody involved, whether you're inside that gate or on Lester Mill or whatever, I think I look back at my email chain, I started on this on February 9th. I realized the wheels of government turn slow, but that's been 90 days. We need to go, guys. And my office is 2 miles away from here, and I got a survey crew that could help you. All the county staff will tell you, I'm here to help. I'm not here to be the adversary, but when they get handed a correction notice and say, get an engineer to design a problem, the only problem is the builders on those lots didn't create the problem. I think we can all agree on that. So I'm all about, I guess those buzzwords, consensus and working together, but we need to, this has been going on far too long, so I'm willing to help.
I think if we move in the direction Mr. Preston's going with the 70,000, and we put that on the table, and then I circle back around with you. I mean, at some point, somebody's just going to have to pull that trigger. And that's
Yes,
what
sir.
I cannot stand about government. We talk about things over and over and over and over
I want this to
again.
be the decision. I wanted to give some guidance to staff, and then this be the decision. We provide the money, and we provide the guidance that we're going to protect privacy, as well as provide a budget.
We're going to have to go in that drainage easement.
And we use a portion of the drainage easement as part of the
You got to,
solution.
whether it's concrete or whether it's, a tail ditch.
When is y'all's next meeting? 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Okay. Well,
I mean,
No, we're not tabling anything, but we're going to come back with a detailed design. You go ahead and improve your motion. If you don't make me sit up here for 3.5 hours before I have to get up here, me and Mr. Prince will get it done.
Yeah.
And work along with Mr. Rutan and anybody I need to be. But these people need some relief.
If you have to do any work outside of an existing easement, we're all gonna have to acquire easements as well, and that's just gonna increase your budget. I don't know the status of the drainage easements. I'm presuming there is the standard 20-foot along the rear of those lots, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
10 on each side,
Yeah,
20 down the back.
It
and
doesn't
I
exist.
presume this can be done and stay within those drainage easements, but if you have to get out of them, we're gonna we gotta get into the business of acquiring easement rights as well.
No, we
So-
don't want to be buying, I'm with
And
the
I-
chairman, I don't want to be buying dirt.
And I'll need to see the plans when they're done to know whether or not we can do everything we need to do within those easement areas. So I can't tell you until the plans are done whether or not we're gonna have to exceed those easement areas, because it depends on what those final plans look like. So, you know, there is going to be some uncertainty in this thing until the plans are finished, and there's no way around it.
So approving the money and then putting guidelines, it wouldn't be sufficient.
It could be that we come back and say, well, now we have to buy some easement rights or buy some property rights from somebody. But the only way you're gonna know is to have plans drawn. I can't tell you, there is no way for me to tell you, I don't think anybody can tell you until the design is done, whether or not it can all be contained, whether or not everything can be contained. You know, we're just gonna have to deal with that. But otherwise, you're gonna be sitting here staring at a big circle that never ends. You might as well kick it out of that circle
That's
and
what, so
start
tell me the
down.
next step legally to kick it out of the circle.
I would suggest adopt the resolution you've adopted, direct staff to move forward. If at any point it appears it's gonna be above $70,000, they gotta come back or abandon it or something. Because it could happen. It could happen.
And so moved, that's my resolution.
Okay, we have a motion to add second.
Second.
Second from District 4. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. So moved. Resolution approving a budget amendment and awarding bid for construction of Fire Station Number 15 in Hampton, Georgia, using Splash 4 funds. Yes, sir.
Chairman, Commissioners, good afternoon. The voters in Henry County approved the SPLOST 4 referendum, which included funds for a new fire station, number 15 in Hampton. The Purchasing Department solicited bids for the construction of fire station number 15 and posted bid number 16-51 on the websites of the county, Team Georgia Marketplace, and the ACCG GLGA. Prospective vendors were notified about the posting via the Team Georgia Marketplace and by email. 5 vendors submitted bids. The bid tabulations are attached to the resolution. The most responsive low bid came from Headley Construction of Noonan, Georgia, in the amount of $2,140,000. A budget amendment is necessary, transferring $440,000 from the SPLOST 4 911 radio replacement account, SP 4001, to the SPLOST 4 Fire Station number 15 account, SP 4007. And for everyone's information, both those are countywide projects. If anyone has any questions.
Any questions or comments? Not, somebody move in that direction?
Move to approve.
Have a motion, District 2.
Second.
Second, District 5. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. So moved. Resolution approving the request to apply for
Thank you.
bus and bus facilities. Dang, I can't say FTA. FTA 5339B.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Approval is requested to apply for FTA 5339B Bus and Bus Facilities Grant to replace buses for Henry County Transit. The grant funds will allow Henry County to replace 14 new 13 and 16 passenger wheelchair accessible vehicles valued at $686,978. The 14 vehicle new buses that we have currently are past the useful life of 5 years, 100,000 miles. Additionally, Henry County will purchase 2 36-passenger wheelchair accessible vehicles to be used for a potential fixed route or airport shuttle transportation valued at $300,000. FTA 5039B will be reimbursed for $789,582.48 at 80%. The local match is $197,395.62 required by FTA.
Okay, according to this right here, it's, the funds will be available for use up to 4 years.
I'm sorry?
It says right here, it said, whereas the funds will be available for use up to 4 years.
Yes.
Yes, we don't necessarily have to spend $128,000 up front.
No.
Gotcha. Somebody move in that direction?
So moved.
So moved from District 4.
Second.
Second District 1. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Resolution approving amendment to the GIS Department FY 2016 budget and authorizing the use of a contingency fund. Good morning.
Because of unplanned and unexpected extra expenditures, I am requesting that that I get an approval for the budget amendment and the contingency amount of $13,439 in order to cover existing shortfalls in the accounts of professional services, repairs and maintenance, and rental equipment.
Anybody have any comments or questions? Somebody move in that direction?
So moved.
Have a motion, District 3.
Second.
Second District 4. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution authorizing the purchase of 10 2016 Ford F-150 trucks. George,
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Board
you look
members.
sharp in that bow tie.
I bring in front of you the request for 10 vehicles. The fleet has 19 total vehicles within the department, and we are asking to purchase 10 new vehicles. Going back, the date of the vehicles are 2004 and 2006. This is an illustration of the 3 4-doors that we are requesting, and we also requesting 7 2-doors, no 4-wheel drives on those vehicles. We are purchasing through a local vendor. Purchasing through a local venue at the dollar amount of $211,650. Funds are coming out of the department funds, which is listed here from 2014 to 2015 of $478,830. So the funds are available. The funds are available to purchase the 10 vehicles for the department.
Anybody got any comments or questions?
George, I'd like to ask you, I guess this is state contract, all this state contract
Yes, all
prices.
state contract.
Have we reached out to the local Ford dealer and see if he could match these prices?
I didn't personally, no. Once we done the request, we just went off the local contractor list, which was Allen Vigil.
Okay. Rod, can you come up?
Yes, sir. We'd have to do a sealed bid. We couldn't allow them to match. It'd have to be a sealed bid for the 10 vehicles, or we could use the contract pricing. We can't ask them to match it.
But you can take your state contract prices and put a RFP out and get requests to see if they could even match.
Well, this is a commodity purchase, so it'd be just a straight bid. We'd put out the specifications. We'd probably leave it on the market for 3 weeks, and then we would allow whatever vendors were interested to solicit bids for the vehicles, and then the low bid would be the award.
But doing an RFP, not actual bid, we could do an RFP.
It's a commodity purchase, so it would be a bid. I mean, we could inquire what they would offer us as pricing, but it would be nothing but anecdotal information. For us to purchase it outside of the contract, it would have to be a sealed bid.
You know, I'm good with it, but I just think we need to try to reach out to our local people all we can and keep the money here in Henry County. And if we could find a way in the future to do that, I think we need to try to do that. Thank you.
I yield to District 1.
Hey, George, is some of these vehicles gonna have alternate fuel systems?
Say again?
Are they gonna have alternate fuel systems?
No.
They're not? I just saw it on here, I just wondered.
Just, yeah, it's not checked out as an option.
They provide us a list with all the possible options, and if we have to check it off for it to be one of the options.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if it did, what kind of alternate would it be? Okay.
Yeah, I have a copy of the list of options.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Everybody happy? Somebody move that we'll approve this resolution?
Move to approve.
Have a motion, District 4.
Second.
Second, District 5. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Resolution approving the sand storage hardware, primary and backup for the new ERP and public safety system and a budget amendment for fiscal year 2015-2016.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members. With the prospect of the new ERP public safety systems coming online, technology services must prepare for the upgrade necessary capacity in both servers and storage. In addition, these systems are mission critical to the county, who must also provide adequate backup, basically the same server here as in our backup system. The necessary system would be purchased from Dell on state contract SWC 9890813-01 in the amount of $148,746.40, and approve the budget transfer from the account 5919006 to Technology Services in the amount of half of $500,000 in order to purchase this hardware and to fund other networking equipment needed to start this process.
Is this
Any
part of the $5
questions?
million plan?
Sir?
This part of the $5 million?
That was part of the,
The answer is no.
no.
The answer is no.
No, sir.
Okay.
I have to ask my wife the same thing.
That's
so
okay.
I don't know.
So we haven't got into the $5 million deal?
No, sir.
Anybody got any questions or comments?
That's what we're doing here. When we upgrade to our new camera systems and everything in our vehicles, everything's HD now, I believe.
Correct.
I mean, it takes much, much more space to save.
A lot.
I mean, very simple. When we go to body cameras, again, we're going to have space to save everything. So that's basically what we're doing.
When we go to body cameras, you're going to see this quadruple.
Right.
This data storage,
Right,
at
so-
least on the minimum side.
Again, this is mission critical. This is just something we have to do to
Plus-
save the data.
Plus, we have one in the disaster recovery, so any data stored here is transferred bit by bit to the disaster recovery at the PD, so it's necessary. And all the networking equipment to keep up with that is definitely necessary, but. Any more questions?
Any more questions? Any more comments? Somebody move in that direction? Have a motion, District 4. Second, District 1. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. So moved.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Resolution approving intergovernmental agreement, City of Stockbridge for law enforcement services. Council.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Before you today is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with City of Stockbridge for the provision of police services. There are two alternatives. There's we've called them, for the lack of a better word, option 1 and option 2. There's actually a revised option 2 that's been handed out to each of you that's different from the one in the book. It differs by one word, and I'll show you what that is in a minute. But the short version is that both of these agreements will continue in place what's existing today, which is we'll continue to police within the City of Stockbridge. Traffic citations will be written to the State Court of Henry County, and we will collect property tax revenue to fund those services from the residents within the City of Stockbridge. The difference is this: option 1 leaves the county with the option to assess a different rate of taxes within the City of Stockbridge than it assesses outside or within the unincorporated areas. You would accomplish that by creating a special tax district within the City of Stockbridge and charging them a higher millage rate. Option 2 prohibits that from happening. Option 2 says that during the term of this agreement, which is a 5-year agreement, during the term of those 5 years, you will always tax at the same levy rate within the city as you do outside of the city. In other words, if the millage rate for police services is 2 and I have no idea what it is, but if it's 2 in the unincorporated area, it's going to be 2 within the city of Stockbridge. So that's the difference between the two. The handout that you had changed, the only change between the handout and the one that is in your book is under paragraph 3A. Paragraph 3A of the one in your book says, the county shall levy, assess, and collect ad valorem taxes within the incorporated areas of the city at the same rate as are assessed in the unincorporated Henry County. The one I provided to you says at the same levy rate. And that's just to ensure that we levy the tax at the same millage rate. So that's the difference between the two of them. It's for you to choose which one. I can tell you that I have been informed from the city attorney, who is still here, that option 2 would be acceptable to the city. Option 1 will not be acceptable to the city. They will not agree in the form of an agreement for us to engage in a provision or engage in a scheme that would allow us to assess the city residents a different level of taxes. So those are the 2 options I've presented to you, which are essentially the 2 remaining options that I have heard anyone discuss as realistic options for moving forward. Both of them today would not call for any change. Both agreements will put onto paper what's happening today. The question is, what happens in future years as you seek to fund those police services? And again, it's a 5-year term. There's no obligation on either party at the end of the 5-year term.
Let me ask you this. I know we're doing this for a reason, but I know we're doing this for a reason, and I know we're already doing this, but why do we have to minimize it to writing? Is it some legal?
There is. It's actually the Georgia Constitution.
City, county requirement that
the Georgia Constitution says that the county can provide services, but can provide services within the city only with a written agreement. So we are providing a service within the city. We need to formalize this. We need to have a written agreement. It's also part of our service delivery strategies agreement, which we will have to tackle the big picture service delivery strategies agreement in the coming, and sooner rather than later. And this is probably going to be the most difficult. Well, without question, it's going to be the most difficult aspect of that with respect to city stock.
Just speaking for me, I favor option number 2. Reason being, I would have a tough time being a county official assessing independently the citizens of Stockbridge. So I would favor 2, but based on the language, you're doing the same service for Stockbridge as you do the unincorporated area. At what time and what would be the criteria that you'd want to give them a different tax?
Well, you know, I think what option 1 acknowledges is that there may be a higher, there may be, by nature of the city being a city and being more intensely developed, more commercial activity, more people in closer confines, and it could be that you need more policing within the city of Stockbridge than you need in unincorporated areas. And if that's the case, you may provide a higher level of service, in which case you could impose a differential tax rate.
How about if they needed something out at Ola, and we determined that they needed more police protection out there? We wouldn't.
The law allows you to create special tax districts throughout the county for that very purpose.
So this is not. We could do this at the stroke of a pen. Is that what you're saying?
You can create a special tax district at the stroke of a pen, yes.
But Stockbridge will not accept that.
They will not enter into an agreement that contemplates that.
I would think if they needed more, they would ask for more, and they would levy a tax to fund it.
That as a county, we should levy any type of tax district on the city of Stockbridge. If they want to levy their own tax district in order to start their own police force, they can do that on their own. So I don't believe that we should be the governing body for the city. With that said, you know, this has kind of gone on way too long. And, you know, with the little girl that was shot in the back just a week or 2 ago, I think it's time for us to solidify this agreement and move forward with option 2.
I'll recommend. I yield the floor to District 3.
Patrick, I like option 2. The only question I've got is, could we, instead of doing a 5-year agreement, could we implement it as a 5-year, but renewal each year? That would way the city could have to opt out if they wanted to, maybe 90 days before January 1st or something, to opt out. Maybe they might want to start their own police department instead of just having this 5-year agreement.
I'll say this, it's taken us over a year to get to this point. If we have to reopen these discussions every year, we'll never have an agreement in place. We could certainly add a provision that said that if the city elects to create their own police department, that they'd have the right to terminate this agreement. I'm looking, I don't think we have a termination provision in this one, but I wouldn't have a problem with allowing the city to give us notice of termination in the event they create their own police department or otherwise provide police services. We would need enough time, because there's going to be some logistical issues. If that were to happen, we would likely have to vacate the police precinct building. We would need enough time to pull out of that, and we would need enough time for the police department just to sort of figure out logistics on that.
The answer to your question is that I think he's right, that we give you at least a year's notice, but the truth of the matter is, Gary, the city doesn't have the money at this time. We got to wait for the next SPLOS to come through so that we can generate the monies to do the base police services, the cars, the equipment, and all of that we could use SPLOS money to get.
And that's where the 5 years came from.
That's where the 5 years come in. But I personally believe if we came to you 2 years from now and said we've found gold, that y'all would let us out of it, and
we would,
and so forth.
You guys mind?
But that
well, first off, I'm not.
You want me here or not?
No. Okay. As for the city not having the money to start their own police department, they're promised a developer $6 million on Jericho Road, so I don't really know if that statement that the city doesn't have the money to do their own police department is actually factual. I'm guessing if they have $6 million to give to a developer on Jericho Road, that they probably have $6 million they should start a police department with, but it's all in a matter of priorities. But let me start, if I may. The citizens of Stockbridge need to realize I work for them. I'm their commissioner. I mean, I'm here for them. I want to fight for them, and this is really what this is about. And the financial stuff has kind of gotten in the way, but I found it interesting. When we were doing the CDBG stuff, they had community needs assessment survey they had put in there. It's very interesting. Citizen of Stockbridge, what are two most important needs in your community? And the citizen wrote, need more police. Another one, same deal. And the city has asked us to police the same rate that they police and we police in the rest of the county. And they're going to make this up by hiring armed vigilante security guards to service the city. So I asked the chief to pull just real quick shootings in Henry County, and I'd like to compare the shootings in Stockbridge with in Kellytown. We had January 31st shooting, gun struggle, Stockbridge. February 7th shooting, intentional robbery. February 28th shooting, intentional. March 10th shooting, intentional, Stockbridge. March 17th shooting, intentional, Stockbridge. April 19th, drive-by, Stockbridge. April 23rd, shooting, Stockbridge. I believe that was a shooting where we had 37 shell casings found at the scene. This is getting a little out of hand, and I'd like to read all the shootings we've had in Kellytown since January. There are none. Being asked to provide police service at the exact same level that we provide in the rest of the county and not wanting to pay any more is frankly ridiculous. And the false information that's been put out by a lot of the city and city officials and city employees is appalling. Mr. Michael Harris made a statement in the paper that they provide the police station, which they equate to $278,000, I believe, a year, as if they provide this without compensation. The sentence should have been finished by saying, we provide this, but the county paid the city a good amount of money up front to use this building.
And that's what we call a live omission when you do not finish your statement. Now, here we are. We went to mediation. We've been talking about this for a daggum year. We went to mediation, and the sticking points at mediation, Chairman, you were there, Gary Barham was there. The sticking point, the number one issue was the city said, we want special tax districts. That was the sticking point. That's why we couldn't come to agreement at mediation. And now I get this a month later that says we will not do if you do special tax districts. And I want to tell the citizens of Stockbridge how dangerous this is if I'm not allowed to take a look and see if there is a need in Stockbridge, if we need to increase police service, which we do. If you think we don't, I can provide you a list. The crimes that are happening there are very violent. They require much more police service than we'll even say, a typical crime in Ola. These are violent, angry crimes. And I hate to see my city, where I grew up, just go by the wayside to save a few bucks and hire some security force that can't do what police can do. They can't arrest, they can't detain, they can't serve warrants. Our police officers, they're putting them in danger. And it scares me that somebody's going to get shot, my officers are going to get shot, public's going to suffer because we have armed security guards who are not post-certified. If they are post-certified, they're not able to service this county. It is a very scary, scary thing. My issue, City of Stockbridge, just pay for the police service that you need. That is our number one role. That is our number one. When we take this job, public safety, number one. Everything else falls aside. Developing property, that's cute, that's great, that's fun. Take the $6 million, put it into your public safety. They're not going to approve the one where we can up the levy, the taxes if we need to. Yet, in mediation, that was the only thing they would take. So we've got 180 degrees in less than a month. At this point, we'll just have to do the option 2. The citizens of Stockbridge, you're going to suffer from this. I have no jurisdiction in the city. If I could make them provide more police for you as you've asked, in the simple form right here, as you've asked, but I can't. So we'll move along with option 2. We'll tax you at the same rate. We'll police you in the exact same rate. You got to see the new police service that the city asked for and requested this past weekend when there was 37 rounds found on scene. This is the type of service they have asked for. I have been fighting for you, my constituents, to up the service. But I can't force them to do anything. With that, I apologize to my citizens. I'm doing the best I can for you. You've got an election coming up. It's a big point to make. You might ask your city council why in the world they could spend $6 million on a development, but they can't get you police. With that, I yield the floor, Chairman.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments?
This isn't a public meeting.
Huh? Do what?
No. No.
Somebody move that we allow comments from the public? Have a motion?
This isn't a public meeting.
Oh, it's difficult. I think we're just going to open up Pandora's box if we just continue this.
Let's just
I think everybody's ready to go with district. I think most people here is going with option 2. And anything beyond that would just, right now I'm going with option 2. If he says something, I may not even go with that. So I'm saying we might ought to take what we got and move on. Does that make sense?
I think if he wants to respond to some of the comments, he should be able to.
Well,
that's just my opinion, but if the board doesn't.
I think we done heard enough on the past year. But anyway, if the motion passes, then,
So move. I'll move to approve option 2.
okay.
To approve
We have a
option
motion for option 2, but let's clarify this. When you get to the discussion, I'll get an amendment, so somebody seconds that. Somebody seconds option 2. Okay, we have, now, discussion. If you read the resolution, it makes reference to Exhibit A and not option 2.
Well,
So
the resolution, you can, that's fine, we can say option 2, but we'll attach whatever you vote for will become Exhibit A. So you're voting for Exhibit A, for the resolution,
Well, what I'm
Exhibit A will
saying-
be option 2.
He moved to approve the resolution, which it says, only thing it says is option A. We don't have an option A. We got
And amend your motion to include option 2 as Exhibit A.
option what?
Option 2 will be Exhibit A.
Option 2 will be amendment, Exhibit A.
I move to approve option 2, which would be Exhibit A.
Okay, we have a motion. Second from District 2. Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. So moved. Oh, it says lunch. What he said? Bring lunch back. We'll be here when you get back. Okay, approval of the minutes, March the 29th, 2016. That's the minutes reference the GDOT meeting. And then on the correction there, I don't know what it shows on the agenda now, but in any event, it will be April the 5th, 2016 budget meetings, minutes. April the 19th will be a BOC meeting. Chairman and Commissioner's comments. I have no comments, so I started with District 5 last time. So I'm going to start with District 1 this time. Do you have any comments?
No, sir.
District 2.
No comment.
District 3.
No comments,
District
Chairman.
4.
I do.
District 5.
No comment, Chairman.
I have a comment.
I'm sorry. I'm going to recognize District 4.
May 21st, is my mic on? Mic?
If you don't, you can use mine.
Okay. May 21st, I'm having a town hall, it's a public safety town hall, where we'll be discussing the Commissioner Blake Prince Public Safety Initiative, which is the pay plan that we've been working on. It'll be May 21st at Mosley Park at 9 a.m. I would ask anybody that's got any question about public safety or concern about public safety, please come out to the town hall. Again, Mosley Park, May 21st. I'll be posting up on Facebook and everything, but I'd love to see you there. We're going to have representation from the police department, fire department, sheriff's department, and maybe 911. So I'd love to see everybody there. Please come out, and I'll remind everybody again. Thank you.
Okay, County Manager, feminine and temporary use of county property.
Commissioners, we've dusted off an older document that the board has looked at in the past. Right now, as of late yesterday, we're getting requests almost daily for some sort of use of county property, whether it be a road closure, a use of the buildings, or what have you. And so we are having to dust off some old ones. Right now, we're doing them on a case-by-case basis, being as careful as we can and accommodating the short notices that we've been getting from the film industry representatives. I believe we're going to have to vet the 2013 or thereabouts version that the board looked at back then, vet it internally and see how it's going to affect current day's policy and learn from our experiences thus far. But I think we can bring that back next time. What we've got in place is the indemnification and certainly the licensure parts. We've been able to accommodate the traffic requests for road closures just on a moment-by-moment basis, and that has proven to tax the system. So our policy right now, we're still working on it. We'll bring it back hopefully the very next one so you can look at the policy issue and make certain that we've accounted for the sensibilities that the Board of County Commissioners may want to put in it. I have a few other updates, Mr. Chairman, if you allow, unless the board has questions on the use permits.
Anybody having questions? Continue.
I am pleased to introduce to the Board of County Commissioners, as well as Henry County, Ms. Doris Patterson. Mrs. Patterson is our new HR director. She came to us via quite an extensive selection process. It involved 32 applicants and 14 interviewers, and it was a very interesting process. Certainly, Ms. Patterson, we stole her from Rockdale. Well, we got her from Rockdale County, where she served 5 years as their deputy human resources director. She has both private experiences in the public and the private sector, and she's SHRM, which is a credential that is long sought after by HR professionals. This is Ms. Doris Patterson. We've had a little reception for her, and we've got her off and running. She's got the next few weeks will be pretty busy tying things up and moving us on to the next thing. We've got some agenda issues coming up. We've got some performance measures that we want to include. So she's got a laundry list of things to be working on, and just want to give her a chance to address this board.
Well, on behalf of the board, we welcome you. And I don't know if county manager suggested to you, but this is probably one of the shortest meetings we ever had. They're normally longer.
It's funny that you said that, because I was about to say I think this was my first test to see if I could survive this meeting. So I think I passed the test. But I'm happy to be here. I feel that I can make a difference. I do recognize that I have a responsibility to the Board of Commissioners, to the county manager, to the employees of this county, and also to the citizens. And I'll service to the best of my ability to make sure that I serve each of those customers in a great way.
Okay, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioners, I'm going to ask the board to amend the agenda to include a vote for me. Several weeks ago, we received a request from the assessor's office, Mr. Reddick, for a conversion of a hallway space into some of his office space, whereby we will wall off the areas that are closest where the vault is right now, that large vault. The tape is on there. It's on the walls also. We understand as of this morning, all the permits have been acquired. The fire inspections considerations have been brought in. But it is certainly an adjustment to the physical plant, the building. And so I'm asking the board, you've seen the pieces of it, would the board authorize the facility maintenance director to start construction on that? We've done everything in place. The only thing I don't have is permission or authorization by the Board of County Commissioners. Sir?
What's the cost, not to exceed $10,000?
The materials cost, I think, was just under $6,000, $5,000 and change. But I don't have the total construction price, because for me, that's all in. But I knew that the materials part, I think Hutch is 5 what? Less than 5. And so I've still got to count labor and other things in that to get you a real takeoff on the construction project. Mr. Reddick has said over and over again, and if you go in his office, his people really are stacked up on top of each other on one set of cubicles when we have a lot of storage. So what they want to do is convert the areas that is most advantageous for storage and have this for another office space conference area.
Do you have a resolution for this effect, or we're going to just do a motion and fix it?
I think all I'm going to require is just an affirmative vote by the Board of County Commissioners for this construction.
Does somebody move we amend the agenda to hear this item?
Move to approve.
Have a motion District 2 to hear it. There a second?
I'm sorry? This is for the restoration and putting additional office space in the hallway down below. We're cordoning off a hallway area, putting a door in that goes into the assessor's office, and giving them some space where they can have storage in the assessor's office, and this will be an office area for a conference room. Right now, we're using their conference rooms as a storage area. They need some other spaces.
So I think, do we have a motion to amend the agenda to do that from District 2?
Yeah.
Okay, we have does anybody second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second from District 4. Any discussion?
You have any questions for Hutch?
We have a question here from District 1.
I've been down and spoke with Mr. Bonner and Mr. Purvis about this. And I understand we had a shortage of getting electricity there.
Well, we've got shortage of electrical power in the building. With renovations going on and what was actually installed in, we do have some inlet power shortages that have been pointed out to us. The more we add electronically, all the electronic devices, the lightings, the reconfigurations of the building, our electrical demand has gone up, and it's got to be addressed. We've got a transformer and an inlet service on it that right now I'm operating on a notion that it is at capacity. We're seeing some voltage fluctuations would have triggered some things down in IT over the weekends. We've had some other things occur that lead us to believe that that's going to be something we're going to have to address in the near future, and it will be substantial. There is a way to bring additional power in. The other issue we need to look at we don't have standby generation, but for part of the building we probably will have to go to that, which involves a transfer switch, which involves something else. But right now, the immediate question is, we will have sufficient power for this walled area. It's not such a demand, but for lighting. But I'm glad you brought it up, Commissioner Moss. This is a serious issue that we weren't aware of, and now we're just going through the parts of trying to figure out exactly where we're at and what it's going to take the next step to get you the additional power inside the building.
Let me ask you a question. Why would we need auxiliary power to this building?
Well, there's any number.
You're talking about a generator?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's any number of reasons why I find benefit to it, but if we were to go in and could bring another panel in and another service in that could support, for example, the air conditioners, the computer rooms, everything to have a stable environment electrically on these critical issues, some of our lighting needs to be on it, then I would recommend that. It be a smaller generator.
We don't have one now.
We don't have anything but battery backup is for the computers.
Yes, sir. We do have a generator.
I thought we do have a generator.
Yes, sir.
But nowhere near capacity to build.
Well, the deal is, if you got an auxiliary, then nothing out here basically is essential other than a computer system that I know of. So we'd have to just generate enough energy to protect the integrity of the computer system. All the other people in a room, we can send them outside or send them home. Yeah, but I already knew we had a generator, so that's why I said I thought you indicated we didn't have any auxiliary power. So you're saying we don't have sufficient to run the building?
And everything that's in it as is occupied.
Okay, I got you. Yes, I thought maybe we'd have to.
Question. Is it going to have any adverse effects on the entrance to the elevator downstairs?
That corridor is actually going to shrink. We'll be cutting the case opening in the wall that we have the blue tape on. So yes, sir, that area will be a lot smaller than it is now. But the fire marshal came by from the city and he approved.
Does that comply with ADA and all that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, to the question.
I'm sorry. Forget that. He's going to ask you if it complies with ADA.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? We have a motion on the floor to do the second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. So moved. Do you have anything else?
That was just the amended agenda. Vote on the resolution.
That puts it on the agenda. Somebody moved that we authorize not to exceed $5,000 for the construction that you just mentioned. Have a motion, have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. So moved. Do you have anything else?
Yes, sir, I do. Commissioners, the Phillips Drive building, which continues to haunt us in so many ways, we've come up with another alternative that we need to explore. You know that we had some engineered work that described different kinds of repair that may have occurred to the wall that has failed. Yesterday, I took the occasion to meet with Mr. J.R. Bowman, Bowman Construction, and we went over a proposal and some sketches of what he proposed, and I understand a couple of commissioners have talked to him about it also. I've received the proposal. I need to pass it around to the county attorney and certainly procurement to make sure that this is an option or what we need to do if the board would consider it. But the proposal is substantially less. It addresses the full issues that we have talked about regarding the wall. It essentially gives us a finished product wall repaired and back to a finished drywall configuration with all the electrical and all the accessory things that were in that wall when he took it down. And if you recall, this is about 100 foot, 120 feet, something like that, thereabouts. This is the front wall.
120 feet.
That's 120 some feet. And it turns out that that front wall, and once we dug up to find out what happened to it, it doesn't have the, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And this building is set into for the public's benefit, this building is set in such as you have a split level affair. One part of the building is really a basement looking. You go into the first Phillips Drive entry, you're on the top floor. You go around to the back of the building, you access the bottom of the floor, or the bottom of the building. But none of that front wall had the moisture barriers on it. It should have been initial construction, and this fine Georgia clay's plasticity has busted it, and it's not the first time. So with this proposal, it brings into question something I've shared with the board members. Is it an economic decision where we knock this building down and go vertical to address our space needs, or should we go for a repair? And in that mix of things and looking at, yesterday I also come to find out that we've got serious problems with another division within the county that I'm going to have to relocate, or likely will have to relocate. So with all the, and Chairman, I call it the shell moving we did with all the other areas prior to my getting here and with the loss of Phillips Drive, Mr. Bowman's critical feature of this is he will do it in 60 days for $400,000 is his proposal. And I want it vetted out. I wanted to pass around internally, make certain that the engineering aspects of it meets everything. But this is a consulting agreement. And according to the professional services standards of what you allow the county manager to do, I could enter into an agreement, but this certainly exceeds the dollar amount. And from my perspective, I'd rather have the board fully advised of what we're doing. What I'm going to do now is to pass this around internally, bring it back to you, and have any questions that we can vet with Mr. Bowman in the meantime. But I'd like to bring it back to you at the next meeting.
The comment I have,
yes, sir.
The professional services is permissible.
Yes, sir,
now,
it is.
What this person would be doing would be bidding out the engineering, and then that will have to come back before the board for approval, and then his firm will oversee the actual construction of it. So it's not like we're going to approve $400,000 a day, but as I understand it, he can be retained for professional services only.
And I'm not asking y'all to vote on anything today. I'm just telling you, here's one that's coming. The text actually reads, the budget proposal is based on J.R. Bowman managing the process for the bidding, subcontracting portion of this work to qualified bidders. Then J.R. Bowman will manage this project from a bidding, awarding, contracting, construction, and completion of this project based on the scope below. That's the kind of thing we've got to get vetted out to make sure that we've covered everything we need to do. But if it can be done for that amount of money, and it can be done that amount of time, I have to look at that economic value to the bigger project that I thought we should have been looking at.
Well,
this brings 15,000 square foot back into usable space before fall, and that's critical for me right now.
Have you talked to Rod about this?
No, we just got this yesterday.
We can, look, let me just say this, we can.
Can I get Rod's opinion on this?
I want to jump in and tell you what Rod's probably going to tell you.
But I want to hear from Rod. Rod, sure. Come on up here.
Yeah, there too. Rod's been shaking his head the whole time you've been talking.
Come on up here, Rod, because people are talking too fast. Rod. Oh, this
We typically bid out every aspect of construction. Design, engineering, the actual construction portion. My understanding is we have had 2 engineers review the facility, and we have specifications, so that if it needs to be bid out, we already have the specifications. We would bid it out, and the general contractor would bid on it. We wouldn't need, the general contractor would manage the project. So I don't know that we would need additional project management in addition to what a general contractor would typically provide. Like, Ron, would you agree with that assessment, like for this type of construction? I haven't either. This is the first I've seen, but I mean, we also have centralized purchasing. It's to allow a vendor that didn't bid on the work to bid out the work. I would need to look at this in more detail.
And we can contract with a project manager without putting it out to bid, as long as they're only being a manager and they're not providing any labor, any materials. But all of the labor and materials is going to have to be bid out in accordance with Georgia law, which means we're going to have to manage that bid process. We can't, because it's got to be competitive, it's got to be sealed. So, you know, we've got to look at that, and plus there's an at-risk element. The Georgia Public Works law doesn't allow us to put the risk of gain or loss on the project manager. We have to bear that risk of gain or loss. In other words, if we enter into a deal that says project manager will deliver this project to us for the total amount of $400,000 and we're still going to bid it out, we have to bid that out because the project manager's at risk. So again, I haven't seen the agreement either, but this is a close one. So I want to spend a little time with Rod and looking at this agreement.
My question is, why is it even being presented if we don't have an agreement? Shouldn't we have something in black or white?
Well, I'm sorry, Commissioner, my first comments, my first preference to anything about this was I received it yesterday and it's coming back to you after it's vetted internally. Now, I did say that right off the bat.
I think you should have vetted it with staff and then brought it to us at the next meeting. I mean, just to bring this to us without any type of agreement, without being vetted. I mean, it doesn't make any kind of sense at all.
Let me share this, since we're talking about vetting. My thought, I share with you, but the deal is, this is a $400,000 deal. We done an $18 million deal, no contract, we don't have a contract, we don't have an agreement with our broker. They bid it out and present it all to us, and the board merely approves it. So this is where I get hung up on, where's the contract for the insurance for the broker? That's the same thing. I know you don't see it that way, but
well, there is a little bit of a different law in play. The Georgia law has a specific law for public works projects, which are building buildings. And so there's a different set of Georgia laws that deal with building buildings than would deal with things like insurance. So
yeah, but it's still a closed shop, is what you're looking at.
I'm sorry. Okay. Well, we are operating.
I just wanted to make that.
I
thought we could, I think we're talking apples and apples. But anyway, I'll follow the purchasing and the managers, if y'all confer with each other and bring something to us. Whatever needs to be done legally, that's what we need to do, period.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the things I'm working on. That's all I have, unless the board has questions for me.
Anybody got any questions for him? Okay. County Attorney, you have anything?
Nothing for public session.
You told me you had about an hour and 45 minutes and stuff.
You know, Mr. Chairman, it's y'all's meeting. I do have 3 cases I would like to get settled, and I have 1 condemnation I need approval, but I don't have to do them today. If the board decides not to do executive session,
Is that the only thing you have for executive? I mean, it's up to you. We can go into executive session. It's up to you.
I've got 4 things that should be relatively quick, but you never know. And they can wait if y'all want to wait. It's late. It's up to you.
Me too. I'd rather go. Anybody? Yeah, we're gonna pull the trigger on that. Okay. Upcoming meetings and events: May the 17th at 6:30 p.m. is the regular meeting. June the 7th, 9 o'clock is the regular meeting. Item C, July the 5th. At the moment, we're going to cancel that meeting, and through the request of some commissioners, we may just, I may determine that will be held at another time, which I can do that. So we've taken that, we're canceling that meeting, and of course it'll be properly advertised. So now does somebody move that we move into executive session for the sole purpose of, I'm going to call this pending potential litigation? That's it. Okay, does somebody move in that direction?
So move.
Have a motion, have a second. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, all opposed, same sign. Okay, we're going into executive session. And according to counsel, we will not be.